Visual Wildcat Hour. Got my good friend Franco with us today. Franco is with a company called Near. You can find him online, Hire with Near. We've worked with Franco and Near to start finding talent for digital wildcatters in Latin America. So, Franco, thanks for being on the show with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the hiring market and how Latin America is a good solution for people struggling to find talent. So yeah.
Yeah, this is something I've been talking about lately on Twitter and LinkedIn. And so I first found you guys because Michael Girdley is involved with Near. I don't know if he's a founder or if he invested in you guys, but I first heard him talking about it. And so that's how I found y'all. And like I said, we've worked with y'all, had really good experiences, and really wanted to bring you on the show today to talk about the process of hiring talent in Latin America, the benefits that come with it. That way, all the companies that are in the digital wildcatters community, whether they're oil and gas startups or they're more established companies, can get some insight into what's happening down in Latin America. So I'll give it to you. I know you got some slides that you want to run through, and I'm probably going to have questions while you're running through these slides, and we can chop it up. So with that said, let's get it kicked off, man.
Sounds good. And yeah, you mentioned Gurley, Michael Gurley, and so I can start there. He's one of our co-founders. Interesting thing is he was my boss first, so I can share a bit about how we started the company.
Yeah, I want to know that. I didn't know that he was your boss. So give us a little bit of background there.
Yeah, that didn't last for that long. It was maybe 6 months, I think. But 2021, I was in Argentina. I was based in Argentina. I still am in Buenos Aires, and I was working as a financial analyst in a software startup. Right, kind of frustrated back then. Not a lot of job opportunities that would offer what I was looking for: growth and good financial opportunity. So started looking for some other opportunities outside and met Michael through Twitter. Back then, I think he had 5,000 followers, something like that.
Yeah, he's blown up since then.
Yeah, I think he's at 200K. Yeah, I can't say that's because of me because it's not. It's just a coincidence. But yeah, he was hiring for. I was interested in what he was tweeting about private equity, venture capital. He had built and operated a few companies, and he was hiring for one of his portfolio companies. So he posted that on Twitter. I reached out, had a few interviews. Long story short, he says, "Okay, I want to hire you, but you got to figure out how we do it because I've never done it before. So you got to go and learn how to make it in a legal way, compliant way. How we're gonna pay you, how all of that's gonna work." So that was my first task. I did. I went and did all of that, and we started working together. Again, a few months in, and we are getting a lot of interest from both sides. My friends, they were asking me, "Hey, dude, how do I get a job like that? You're earning a good amount of money compared to what I was making before, and job is cool. Sounds like you're challenged and you like it." And on Michael's side, his friends, whole business owners, executives, they were asking, "Hey, how do I hire talent that's more affordable than people in the States and that's motivated and want to work hard?" So there was interest on both sides, but there was also, well, the answer to both sides, we were like, yeah, it's just reach out to someone on Twitter or wait until you get reached out by someone on Twitter, which wasn't too helpful a response, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, there was a huge gap in how to make that happen. So we said, okay, there's an opportunity there to help other people, other companies do what we did. And yeah, fast forward to today, we built Near and help hundreds of companies in the States hire people in LATAM, and thousands of people in LATAM get those jobs and really create those win-win outcomes, right? Help businesses grow and help people improve their lives.
And I think, from my side, I saw on Twitter the last few years, some recruiting shops getting popular on Twitter that were focused on sourcing employees in the Philippines and different parts of Asia. And that's always great. But the issue, like the time barrier is a real thing, right? And so what always stood out to me about LATAM was the ability to be in close time zones and a a little bit less of a language barrier and things of this nature. So when I saw you guys pop up, that's what caught my eye. And so yeah, I think that this has kind of been part of a bigger wave of global talent solutions that are being built up off of Twitter, and it's been cool to see you guys crush it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yeah, the Philippines, India, Southeast Asia, those are great talent pools as well, but they obviously can't compete with LATAM on the time zone alignments, because that's just something you can't have with those regions.
Yeah.
There are use cases where some geos are better than LATAM, some where LATAM is better than those than other regions. We'll talk. I'll talk a little bit about those as well. But
Yeah.
LATAM is definitely popular.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and let's get into the presentation and start running through it. And I'll have questions for you, I'm sure, as we go through it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, I mentioned there was a lot of interest on Michael's side, on the employer's side, asking how do you hire talent? And so the question is, why was there so much interest? And the answer is that hiring is hard. It's been getting harder and harder every year for the last 6 years. So you talk to executives, owners, and just companies in general in different sectors, and you hear the same things over and over again. It takes forever to hire someone. You manage to hire someone, invest lots of hours training them, and they quit within 6 to 12 months. We can't afford to hire at the level of talent that we want. People we hire are just not motivated. Those are just a few that I'm thinking of. There's more.
And I've seen that there's a couple different facets. So like oil and gas specifically, this industry's been plagued with not being able to attract younger talent to the industry. So there's already a really shallow pool of people to hire from. And then if you look at like kind of broader macro level within the tech industry, it's really hard because in tech, everyone churns so quickly. You get employees and they're staying for 12 months, 24 months at the max. And so I think that it's kind of it's not dependent on a specific industry. Like every industry is having issues hiring people, but specifically if you're in oil and gas tech, it is difficult to find young talent and talent that just wants to work in the industry, period.
Yeah, and that's really all across the board. And yeah, companies will just hire someone, then have them churn every 6 months. Waste a lot of time to recruiting and onboarding this person. So yeah, definitely frustrating. And part of why that's happening is because of this skills gap that's widening. So you got on one side companies complaining about the lack of qualified, young, hungry candidates, as you mentioned, in the market. They just don't seem to be able to hire those types of individuals. At the same time, on the candidate side, you have folks complaining that job requirements are too narrow, too specific, or that expectations are unrealistic. We actually look at this 2022, 2021 data from one study, and it was like 50% of people in HR executives were complaining about the situation. 2023 is 70%. So that's pretty tough. It doesn't seem like it's going to improve anytime soon. And that's causing two things, really. There's about 10% of all roles that remained unfilled by companies. So teams just remain chronically understaffed, which obviously sucks and doesn't help us hit goals. And or companies just decide to hire people below the level that they were expecting, people less experienced, less motivated, or overall people that would have a lower outputs to what they were expecting, right? And so then you have a candidate-driven market, and it's just insane competition for talent right now. Going back to what you were saying before about really finding those people that want to work hard, that are motivated. Companies are just competing fiercely for those. And something interesting we see when we talk to companies that are hiring is that the main reason for offers that get rejected is that the candidate just got a better one. It's like 80% of the time.
Yeah, and I mean that's a real problem. I've seen that at Digital Wildcatters where I found especially when you're not a heavily funded company. We bootstrapped the company to begin with, and it's like, I'd find someone that was a diamond in the rough. They're making 40K a year, and they come over here, and they double their salary, start making 70 to 80K a year. And then some heavily funded startup comes in that's raised $70 million plus and doubles their salary, and so the competition is fierce, and that's slowed down a little bit in the startup world over the last year or so, but definitely like in 2020 and 2021, I mean, it was just the ability to recruit if you weren't a heavily funded startup was extremely intense.
Yeah, and even for those heavily funded, then there's always someone with more funding and deeper pockets that will gonna come and that's gonna come and poach your candidates as well. So yeah, it was people churning every 3 months, every 6 months, and total carnage. And it's not only salary as well. The third piece we have here is that flexibility. Some of these companies that I was mentioning that tell that they're losing their candidates because they're accepting better offers. People are looking for higher salaries, yes, but also for more flexible working conditions, so hybrid schedule, being able to work from home, stuff like that. That same study I mentioned before showed that 62% of people surveyed prioritize flexibility over higher salaries, as long as the salary was already competitive, right? But after a certain point, that flexibility seems to have more weight for employees as well. And people are just willing to stay in a job with lower pay as long as flexible or remote work options are available, which is good news in some capacity for companies with don't have those huge buckets. They can still in some capacity compete with them if they make an all-around compelling offer, right? Cool. And ways this is hurting companies. Increased burn rates, not great if you're a startup. Just increase the need to raise more money more often. Less budget to spend on growth. CROs, VP marketing, VP sales, they all have to achieve the same goals with fewer resources. And then profit margins getting squeezed as well, which doesn't make any shareholders happy. And the third one, which affects everyone, is a longer time to hire. It just takes longer to hire people, right? And in the meantime, well, you move slower, employees get overworked, and there's just a general sense of frustration that hits the team's morale pretty hard. So massive repercussions.
Yeah, on points 1 and 2, when you're building a startup, I mean, burn rate just lives in your mind, right? And you're very cognizant of that. And then number 2, less budget available for growth initiatives. I actually wrote this. I wrote this Twitter and LinkedIn post last night, and I was talking about this because, some of the feedback that I get when I talk about hiring team members in Latin America is that it's taking American jobs. And for us, we use Near to hire an absolute killer down in Mexico. His name is Juan. And the fact is that we wouldn't have had the resources to hire that position in the United States. The job wouldn't have existed in the first place. But being able to find Juan down in Mexico allowed us to bring on that position, and it actually fuels growth, which leads to the company growing, which leads to more jobs, including American jobs. And so those two things are like really closely tied together: the increased burn rate and being able to increase your budget for actual growth initiatives. And that's one thing that I think people need to shift their mindset towards this about, is that actually building remote teams and leveraging global talent allows you to fuel your growth and ultimately hire more employees in the long term.
100%. That's a great point. And the net effect is definitely positive in the U.S. economy. You mentioned more jobs, more taxes as well, because your companies will get more profitable growth more. So it really all around helps the economy. And okay, so far we're talking about this huge mess that's the hiring market. So what we are doing, I mentioned, helping companies leverage talent from Latin America. So why is Latin America an interesting solution to this issue or potential solve? Well, first, there's the people that you're looking for. They are probably there unless you're looking for something super niche and or something that needs to be on site, like a nurse. And but otherwise, and specifically for the oil and gas industry, oil and gas is one of the largest industries in Latin. So you can find people with both the hard skills, whether that is for the specific role, it's marketing, knowledge of sales, or finance, or accounting, or operations, and also the industry expertise. There are some major energy producing countries: Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, just a few. So there are
Yeah.
thousands of people available for working.
Yeah, I think that's there's a pretty big misconception that talent in LATAM or anywhere around the world is subpar to American talent. And I think it's pretty comical to think about that, especially in terms of oil and gas, because oil and gas is a global industry. And as you mentioned, LATAM has a ton of oil and gas production and talent down there, from very technical petroleum engineers, geophysicists, those types, all the way to software developers and things of that nature. And, like I look at Juan, and, Juan is young kid, early 20s. He's in university studying physics. He's going to be a physicist, super smart guy, and works full time to put himself through school. And so, you're just hard pressed to, find the talent density at the cost in the United States with the attitude of, grateful for the job opportunity and a opportunity to work hard. And so I think that that's a pretty big misconception that needs to be fought a little bit, that, it's lower tier talent in these countries when they're actually very technical people, whether it's in oil and gas, software development, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the motivation piece, and there are more companies now. It's becoming more common now to work for a U.S. company, but obviously it's still more common to work locally. So when you're hiring someone from LATAM, you're basically giving them an opportunity that's huge for them, both from a professional and financial standpoint. So you're hitting them with an offer that makes them start making 2, 3 times what they were making before. You're paying them in dollars, which considered to local currencies is compared, to local currencies, considered hard currency. Most countries here have high inflation, so being able to receive your compensation in dollars means that you can just chill and keep going, keep living your life, and then you to just go running to buy a new currency or spend it because your worth of your money is going down. Quick example: where's Juan from?
He's from Guadalajara, Mexico.
Guadalajara. Okay, I don't have the inflation number for Guadalajara in Mexico, but I know in Argentina it was 200% in 2023. So, being able to pay someone in dollars is a huge selling point to attract those folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you think is like, if you look at it from the other side, I mean, people in these countries are extremely grateful for the opportunities because it accelerates their career, from a skill set perspective, but also from a financial perspective as well. Just taking advantage of that currency arbitrage is huge.
Yep, totally. And you mentioned the career acceleration, that as well, being able to show that you work at a U.S. company, even if you at some point want to work locally for some reason that I can't think of right now. And it's a pretty good thing to show on your resume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, personal anecdote there. When I first started working for a U.S. firm, I had kind of like a moment where I'm like, okay, I'm doing just fine working locally, but I'm not doing my best job. I definitely need to level up, make sure, obviously, that I keep this job, but that I'm also crushing it and advancing here, because this is a pretty good opportunity. And most of the people we talk to, people that we place, it's the exact same thing. They're just pretty motivated and giving it their 100%.
Yeah, what's interesting is when we hired Juan, I told him, I said, hey, we're building a pretty special company here. We have a really special community. And we flew Juan up. We do this event called Fuse every year. And we flew Juan up to Houston to come to the event. And actually, I think Juan's flying up here again today for an all hands meeting that we have tomorrow. And after Juan left and went back home, he he told me, he's like, you told me that, you know, Digital Wildcatters was a special company. He's like, I believe it now. And you could just see like he kind of lightened up and seen the opportunity that, oh, this is actually a high impact company and he's actually part of something big. And so, you know, those opportunities aren't always available locally in these countries.
And that's it's interesting the way you are integrating him in the company. So what we recommend most companies do, and what the companies that get the most value out of hiring internationally are doing as well. Because we were talking about misconceptions, and I think there's also misconception where companies feel like hiring outside of the states, it's just getting some offshore resources to push work to and kind of like helpers. But you're actually hiring, or you can actually hire real team members that will work the same way that someone in the state will work and be part of the company in the same way, which is what you guys are
I
doing.
think that's actually really important to highlight, that is that this isn't offshoring in the sense, like I think a lot of people in the States think of offshoring and it's like, oh, we're just, you know, getting rid of jobs and doing, you know, kind of trivial work with teams in India or LATAM or wherever it's at. And I highly encourage people to shift your mindset and think about integrating these people into your team just like you would any employee in the United States or North America. You know, Juan is in every team meeting with us. He's in every process and system related to sales. I mean, he is a part of our team, and you know, we've even gone to the point, like I said, of, you know, flying him up to Houston every once in a while. And so, and I don't think that that's a coincidence that we're getting a ton of value out of Juan in this relationship, because we're treating it as we are and actually integrating them fully into the team.
That's actually really cool. It's great to hear. And the other thing we touched a bit on this before, but sure, time zones. We're saying India, Philippines, Africa, good markets from cost savings perspective. But obviously, you're working on different time zones, and even if your people in those geos align their working hours with yours, that might just not be the most sustainable thing long term. So you get people working at night and sleeping during the day, and kind of makes it a little bit complicated for them to have a normal life outside of work. So it can
Yeah.
work for a bit, but probably not the most sustainable thing. And you just don't get that with LATAM, which basically means you have lower chances of people burning out, lower attrition rates. So you're not replacing your people all the time, longer tenure. You're able to just build a stronger team, right?
Yeah, you know, I see some people that hired teammates in the Philippines, and when they're talking about the challenges with the time difference, they're like, oh, well, you just make them work in your local time zone. And I always put myself in these people's shoes, and I'm like, well, that sucks if you're working, you know, nights and sleeping during the day. I've worked night shifts a big part of my career in oil and gas, and it fucking sucks. Like, I wouldn't want people having to do that. And so it's just going to lead to burnout and churn ultimately. And so I do think that, you know, with LATAM being in a very close time zone, or sometimes the same time zone, that is a really huge point that needs to kind of be hammered on.
Yeah, totally. And then the last one is related to soft skills, what you get when you hire people in LATAM. And some countries more, some countries less, but pretty much all of them their economy has been a mess for years. You don't have one country where you're like, oh, they actually have a really strong, good, well-functioning economy. And you know the phrase, hard times create strong people create good times. I think it's pretty safe to say that in LATAM, most people have lived through hard times most of their lives. So high inflation, currency appreciation, market volatility, crises every 2 3 years. All financial regulations change every single day. There's something new that you need to adjust to, and that is what people just coexist with. And specifically in the work world, companies need to change the way they do things quickly, because otherwise it's over. They're done. And also, people have to bear that stress, stay alert, again, adapt the way to do things, move quickly. So I think you're getting someone who's naturally used to operate in high stress, high risk environment that's changing constantly, and that shapes people's characters and the way they operate, right? And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it develops grit, right? I mean, I have an affinity for people in the United States that come up through blue collar and trades like I did because it develops a level of grit. And that's one thing that's frustrating in the tech industry is that there's so much froth and entitlement in the American workforce and tech that it's almost unbearable at times. And especially because it seems to come from the average mid-level players. I think that the top talent in America will always be in high demand, and talent in America works really hard because they're very driven people and capitalistic and entrepreneurial. But it's the middle of the curve where you deal with a lot of froth and entitlement, and you just don't deal with that in other countries near as much because of the daily challenges that they have to live through.
Totally, yeah, and I agree with you said what you were saying on top talent. You'll definitely will want your VP sales, VP marketing in the States, and those will be A players for sure. They will crush it. But yeah, that middle layer you were describing is yeah, folks in
Yeah,
there are
and I think that's also you just kind of brought up an important talking point. Is like when I think about building our company, Digital Wildcatters, and kind of our structure of our company. I really like we're actually a culture of in office, but we do have remote workers as well. Some in the United States, some like Juan in Mexico. But the way that I really think about it is like our leadership team and our growth drivers. Like I really like those people being based in Houston and with us. And then, as you look at kind of like mid levels or lower levels, like these are really great opportunities for leveraging global talent. And so that's how I think about it personally for digital wildcatters.
yeah. And going back to your point before that being able to hire talent is more affordable allows you to hire those people as well and faster probably because I think about our company, we had 3 account executives and the 3 of them are in Latin and we have a VP sales in North America. If we did not have access to account executives in Latin, we had to hire them all in the States, we still wouldn't have VP sales. We wouldn't have been able to afford this person or the other VPs that we hired that are also some of them in North America. And so yeah, it really
Yeah,
accelerates.
100%. We just had Kevin Rowe just join us from Oracle, and he was VP of Global Energy and Artificial Intelligence at Oracle. And we wouldn't be able to bring on those types of people if we weren't leveraging global talent in other areas. And so that's exactly what I'm getting at. Is like this actually fuels growth in companies if you structure it properly and think about it through that lens.
Yep, 100%. Cool. A few misconceptions. We talked a bit about some of them. So first, that people are lazy and don't want to work hard enough. It's actually the opposite. People don't just maintain productivity.
Yeah, it's good that you're on this slide because we actually just got a question, or what are the most common myths you hear from clients regarding remote work and oil and gas or in general? What are the realities and that debunk these myths? So looks like we're about to cover this through these slides. So sorry to interrupt you, but that was timely.
No, it's good timing. I like that. And so yeah, people work hard and they actually work more. So sometimes the challenge is how to hold people back, which personally I prefer have a team of people that you got to hold back and not a team that you got to push to get stuff done. So that's a good problem to have, I think. And the reasons people work more is they have a quieter, personalized work environment, have fewer breaks, and sick days. Sometimes they still work. Like if you have a little bit of a fever, probably most people still work those days. And people work longer hours for the same reason. It's just easier to keep going when you're working from home. And so yeah, it's also not just about the increased productivity, but this comes from the same study that I was mentioning. This is actually one from Stanford, and that it also reduces attrition rates by about 50%, which again means that you have to be hiring and acquiring new talent 50% less often. And that shows the positive impact in more work and job satisfaction. other one, but pretty related, that people are not accountable and they're not engaged. They're actually more engaged, and for companies to do it well, and when we talk about the right people, right? On the worker side, on the employee side, since you're working from home and you're not going to the office, if you're not an autonomous person, someone who can manage themselves pretty well on their time, you just won't get stuff done, and it probably will result in you not having a job anymore. So it kind of naturally filters for people who can get stuff done on their own.
Yeah, I have lots of strong opinions on remote work versus in office work. Like I said, we're in office first, but we also utilize remote work. And even with our in office work, we're pretty flexible. Like, our office hours are 9 to 3 p.m. so that we can stay out of traffic. And I look at remote work and a couple things. One, I think it's super important for companies to have KPIs that you're measuring to make sure that people are actually being productive. It's not about numbers of hours worked as much as it is about just accomplishing the mission. And so being able to measure that is super important. But then there's all these tools too. Like, the problem I always had with remote work is I love in-office work because I can turn around and just talk to someone. Like, there's no barrier to communication. There's no friction to that. With remote work, there is friction of I got to send someone a Slack message and like, hey, are you around today, this afternoon? Oh yeah, I am. I'll send over an invite for 2 p.m. And so there's just friction in the communication process. But there's tools out there now, like for example, there's a tool called GatherTown, and like we've made a custom Digital Wildcatters office in GatherTown. It looks just like our real office, and I always tell people, like, if you ever played Pokemon on Game Boy, that's what it looks like. It's like 8-bit characters, and you're running around. But anyways, it alleviates that problem of communication because I can walk, like Franco, if you were in my office in GatherTown, I can walk right up to you, and our camera screens pop up, and I can talk to you. And so there's a lot of cool technology and platforms that are coming out to mitigate some of those issues with communication and speed of transmission of information.
That's great. I'm happy you mentioned that because that was the next point that I was going to make. I was talking about the workers, and I was going to jump on the company side. And I was going to say companies are forced to creating systems like those and implementing systems and processes like those that you are implementing with the Gather. How did you call it?
Yeah, it's called GatherTown.
GatherTown. Yes.
Yeah. Really weird name, but it's pretty awesome. So actually, there's one of the largest oil and gas companies in the United States has gone full remote, and their whole company's in GatherTown. So it can scale up to 1,000 plus people organizations. It's pretty cool.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, tools like that. You mentioned KPIs as well. A well thought out cadence of regular meetings. All those things that just make your company efficient and effective when they go remotely are definitely something that needs to happen. Like, if you just wing it, probably you won't get the best result out of a remote team. But if you're intentional about how you set those systems, those management practices, definitely can get accountability and keep people engaged.
Awesome. And real quick, Franco, everyone, I've got your questions in here. I'll ask your questions towards the end. And so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube. We'll get all of them, regardless of what platform you're on. And I'll take 10 or 15 minutes at the end with Franco to talk shop on them. So, all right.
Sounds good. Third myth. Well, we were talking about this with developers and lower level talent, and some people seem to think that remote work only applies to technology startups and software engineers, or on the other extreme, that you can only hire people to take care of roads work, tedious tasks. But reality is, we were chatting about, is that any job that someone can perform from an office in the US, or almost any job, can also be filled with an international employee. So here are a few examples here.
And let me add on to this. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think that this is actually a misconception that I had And so speaking from like firsthand experience of me getting over this hump, when we hired Juan, you know, near you guys help find us great candidates, and then I use a couple of tests through Test Gorilla as well to test candidates. And one of those tests is an English test, and I always laugh because I think Juan probably got a better score on the English test than I would have got myself, and so he has better English than someone from West Texas like myself. But then the technical ability of these people too. So like Juan, even in like we hired him as outbound sales support, and he actually just closed his first deal from end to end without anyone else from DW touching it. He just paid for his year's salary with that deal, and so he's already several months in, has autonomy where he is he's brought so much value to the company where he's literally paid for himself. And then I look at, I think for us at DW, we're going to build out software development teams probably in Colombia, and continue to build like customer success teams down there. And so these are like really technical, either technical or customer facing positions that we're gaining trust in as a company, and finding people in LATAM to cover.
Yeah, and you went for one of the most hardest roles to fill to start with, a sales position, because that's one that requires a lot of customer interaction. Sometimes people are a little bit less, feel less confident about having someone outside of the States, but it sounds like he's crushing, which is great to hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just a chart showing our data. Only 9% of our people that we staff are in IT or data roles, and most of them are in marketing, finance, and operations.
Yeah, and so I think that we can touch on that a little bit. If you're an oil and gas startup, or if you're just a company in oil and gas, period. I mean, you're talking about people in finance. So hey, if you are a private equity backed mineral shop or E&P, and you need to increase bandwidth on the finance side to assist your finance team and running deals, you have people there. Marketing, if you're an oil field service company or an oil and gas tech and need help on social media and email marketing, things of this nature. Accounting, I think that Franco will probably use Near soon to hire someone that handles our accounts receivable and accounts payable, that'll augment our finance team, which is right now made up of we have a fractional CFO, and we have a third party accounting firm. And so it's literally like whatever you need help with. I mean, there's talent in LATAM to help boost your efforts.
Yeah, whatever you need help with, exactly. And you mentioned private equity. That's interesting. I just that reminded me of another success story similar to the ones. There was this guy that was hired to primarily run financial modeling for a PE firm, and he ended up being sourcing opportunities for them, helping with due diligence, with the interview. I think he was actually even placed as a board advisor of one of the portfolio companies that they acquired. But yeah, it's just to illustrate the difference between what some people think it's just raw work and what people can actually end up using or collaborating with these people on.
Yeah, I know a mineral shop in oil and gas that has a person on their finance team based out of the Philippines, actually, that just sits there and runs models all day and crunches numbers. And so, I think that when you look at the finance industry in oil and gas, there's definitely positions that can be leveraged there within companies too. Like for us, like this whole accounting position that we're looking at for like accounts payable and receivable, like I hate it because it's just pure overhead, and I'm very biased to positions that generate revenue, right? And I'm like, I hate having to spend money on things that are just pure overhead. But with being able to find talent in LATAM, it's a lot easier pill to swallow because I'm looking at a pretty substantial reduction in costs if I wanted to bring someone on to handle that for us instead of hiring someone in the United States.
Right. Yeah, it's a big use case. And the last thing on this one is that people really, you can hire people across all different types of seniorities, junior, mid-level, even managers, directors. One on how to do it. Lots of people think that's super complex and difficult, and reality is it can definitely be complex, painful, and simply not worth it if you don't know what you're doing or if you do it the wrong way. But it's not that hard to learn how to do it. It requires some research. Then doing it, it does require a good amount of time and resources. But just to mention a few quick examples on why it's not that complex. There's no need to issue any sponsorship or work visas. That's something that's a typical misconception as well. People in LATAM, they perform their jobs while they are outside of the States, so they are typically hired as contractors, and which also makes it so there's little tax work and paperwork involved. Not a lot of overhead either. That's normally no employment taxes or anything like that, since again they're hired as contractors and they take care of their own taxes and all of that in their local countries. You can even run background checks in one day if you find the right provider. And so yeah, doing some research makes it not reduces the complexity. So either spend some time, do your research, or hire someone to do it all for you. There's no right option. Well, there's the right option depending on priorities, budget, and internal resources, but definitely can be done. Language barrier. Most people speak English. As you Colin just said, you had a one from Guadalajara closing deals for you, and this guy is also everyone in LATAM. They learn English not because they love the language or they think it sounds beautiful, but because they know it will open doors professionally. So you're talking to someone who just cares about their career and their professional development. And they were also motivated to go and learn a language. They had a discipline to go and see it and learn it, which are arguably things that most people want to have in their employees.
It's interesting seeing this kind of heat map here of distribution of fluency and seeing like South America, like in Argentina, how high it is.
Yeah, this is an average. Mexico, for example, it doesn't look as good, but you can definitely find people who speak great English there. And actually,
I just told you Juan's down in Mexico, and right. It's great, right? So,
yeah, anecdotally, you seem to find people with the lightest accent in Mexico because of the proximity with the States and the influence of the United States. And as you go down south, the accent starts getting a little bit thicker, but you can still find people that are absolutely fluent.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's burn through these last couple slides pretty quick, and then we have some questions that you and I can answer and talk shop on too.
All right. Yeah, I think there were a few questions for you, but you answered a few of them. But if you want to comment, any?
Yeah. So let me look at these real quick. Yeah. So let me answer that third one. Did you have any reservations about the outcomes before you started this process? 100%. And, I'll be pretty transparent here. We've tried hiring global talent for the last 3 or 4 years, hiring people in the Philippines, and it hasn't worked out well for us on an aggregate level. And I think that there are a couple of internal problems that led to that. One, we were thinking about it in terms of like offshoring and outsourcing instead of actually hiring team members at DW and integrating them into our company. I think that was probably the biggest issue that we had. And so, like you said, when we looked to hire someone in sales, I didn't have a lot of confidence, to be honest, because I do think that was a tough position to start off with. And y'all, when we worked with Near, y'all sent us over several candidates. Juan was from y'all sent us 3, and he was from that batch of 3. I didn't look at any more people than those 3 people that y'all sent us, and they were all high quality. I actually liked all of them, and we ended up hiring one. And my expectations have honestly just kind of been blown away. It's pretty funny, you know, his first month or 2 in, our co-founder Jake, who runs sales, he's like, I can't keep up. My calendar is full from all of Juan's outbound efforts. And so it was pretty cool to see that. I mean, you know, definitely changed the way that we look at operating our company and hiring global talent in the future. Which I think that kind of covers how's the caliber of talent you received. And then, you know, the challenges that we face in terms of recruiting. I've touched on this several times throughout this talk, but one was, you know, we weren't a heavily funded company, and we've raised some funding now, and that's changed a bit. But especially when we're bootstrapping, it's like you don't have the resources to go get the best talent in the United States. You just can't compete. And that's a problem because, as you know, Franco, I mean, the success of any company is being able to have the best people, and that was just an issue for us. The second part is that we work in oil and gas, and there's negative connotation towards oil and gas. It's a hated industry, and so, you know, people may turn their nose up to it. We haven't ran into that issue at all, working with or talking with people in LATAM. And so, and then the third is just kind of what we talked about, is like froth in the tech industry. You know, that's something that's really prevalent as well. And so when you look at all those things, it's like you have to pay, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars for an employee in the United States that's entitled, doesn't work hard, and so you get lower level production. That's what was so attractive to us about people in Latin America, was like we could actually make hires sooner, and then get more productivity out of people. And so, you know, why Near? We've worked with other recruiting firms based in Asia and the Philippines, and, you know, virtual assistant platforms and things of this nature, with mixed results, not very good results. You know, there's a couple reasons why I wanted to work with Near. One, because I know Michael Girdley, and I know who he is as an entrepreneur, and he had a lot of confidence and faith in this business, so I knew it had to be good. Then when we started working with you guys, there's a couple things that I like. One, it's risk-free. So if we don't hire someone, it doesn't cost us anything. You guys have a great guarantee. I think it's a 90-day guarantee on hires. And so, it really de-risked it for us as well. And when you look at the time spent, I think that from the time that we gave y'all a job description and the type of person that we were looking for to the point where we hired Juan, it was less than a month. I want to say it was like 3 weeks. It was just quick. And if you're a founder building a company, I mean, you know how much time goes into recruiting. I spend at least a third of my time is spent recruiting and just talking to people and finding interesting people. And so it's a huge effort. And so to be able to find someone on a quick timeline is huge value add.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are definitely things that you still want to keep doing, kind of those conversations that you were mentioning, but there are lots of things that you don't necessarily have to do yourself. So yeah, I appreciate the feedback. It sounds like you're thinking about it right way.
And in the process with y'all, you know, what I like about Near is, one, you guys have a great tech product, like a good platform. You know, these aren't transactions that are happening, you know, just through email. And I love that you guys, you send us videos. So we have videos of the candidates and their interview process, answering questions. You guys administer the tests that we want from Test Gorilla. So by the time y'all send us over candidates, we have videos on them from y'all's interview process. They've taken our test. And so it really just skips all the bullshit and gets straight to the goal line of, hey, here's the best people we found. And now we have the ability to assess them and pick from that pool.
That's great. Yeah, the videos are a huge time saver. So yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. So that's worked out really well for us.
Cool, man. Well, I really appreciate the feedback, and looking forward to working on those positions that you mentioned and the future. I know I have a few more slides, but I know we have 10 minutes. So would you want me to go through them, or you want to do the Q&A?
Let me see what we have on the slides real quick. I think we can probably go through the questions, just given that we're on a little bit we got 10 minutes. Let's talk chop on some of these questions real quick, because I think that there's some good questions. One of them was for you specifically, Franco. It says, if I'm new to hiring talent remotely outside of the US, do you guys help with the job description, salary, interviewing, etc.?
Yeah, we help from the very first step till the last. Really, we take care of the whole process. And what that means is client will come, a potential client, they'll say, hey, we want to hire 2 account executives or whatever they need. And we'll ask them questions and understand what they really need and what's the best fit for them in terms of countries, the market, and things that we'll consider are the depth of the talent pool, compensation, hiring practices. Then we'll advise on one, we'll make a recommendation in a country, help with the job description, help create the hiring process that's most effective for that role. Might include a video interview, as Colin, you mentioned, or a technical assessment if it's a different type of role, and the right amount of interview steps. Make sure that we move fast, that we don't make unnecessarily long, so that we don't lose candidates. And then we start presenting candidates. Once our client find one, we help them hire them and onboard them as well. So it's really includes a good amount of stuff.
Yeah, and also want to give you guys a compliment too, because like if you go to hirewithnear.com, they have all these resources and tools, and you can say, hey, I'm looking for a full stack developer, and it'll show you what the average salary is for that position in LATAM, shows what the average salary position is in the United States, shows like, hey, you know, it'll probably cost you X amount to get this person if they're a junior level, mid-level, senior level. And so you guys have a lot of good free resources. I think, I don't want to talk you guys up too much, but I like getting on y'all's website and just poking around the resources page, because it's really interesting to see, you know, just what it looks like for different positions. And so y'all have done a really good job with y'all's content and your resource. So I'd encourage anyone, you don't even have to engage with Near yet. You can just go to their website and see the resources page. And there's a lot of good information there. You know, for us at DW, the way that we've done this process is we send you guys over, you know, we have our template that we use for any job description, and we go through and we populate that, and we like to do that heavy lifting and then send it to you guys and let y'all go take off and run with it. That's worked out really well for us, but I'm sure y'all do a great job too in helping generate those job descriptions too for the companies that need help with it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We really customize the process depending on how involved or not our clients want us to be. In your case, you guys had job descriptions that you liked and they were customized, so we went with those. Sometimes our clients say, hey, I want you guys to do absolutely everything for us, and we do it as well. So it really depends on the client.
Yeah. And then got another question. It says, do you have any tips on building good company culture when your team is spread out? Franco, if you have any tips, I'll let you go off on that. And I can riff on that a little bit too from DW's end.
Yeah, I can share a few things we do. We'd love to hear what you guys are doing as well. And
yeah,
things that are important for us is to spend a good amount of time, put a lot of onboarding process really, because that's when someone can get completely disengaged if it's not good, if they feel like they're not really being integrated as they should. Give them as much context as we can and what we've done, where we're going. Then we have culture built on transparency. So every 3 months we have a quarterly all hands meeting where we review every single number and most numbers. And so everyone knows where we are. We're on the same page, what got done the previous quarter, what were the key goals, and if we accomplished them, or if we didn't, we mention why we didn't. Ownership is big on our culture as well. So sometimes we haven't accomplished our goals, and that has happened to me as well. And I mention why and what am I going to do to fix it moving forward. And lots of celebration of small wins, lots of feedback as well. Feedback is huge for us. And every time we see something that can be improved, we mention it because we think that high volume feedback makes it so people can then absorb it and feel like feedback is something natural, and then they don't freak out whenever you're telling someone because now they're used to receiving that feedback. So yeah, those are a few things that work for us.
Actually, yeah, I agree with all of that. I love that you brought up the onboarding process, because I would say over like the last year and a half, I've become such a nerd on the onboarding process because I've realized how important it is, not just for remote employees, but for employees in general. And you really have to put a lot of thought into the onboarding process and how you get someone ramped up and involved quickly, because it's crazy. It's crazy how much that determines success in bringing someone onto the team from both sides, from the company side and from the individual side as well. And so love that you brought that up. The second thing too is just like, if you have the resources, just like how we are flying Juan up to Houston every once in a while, that's huge. Make them feel like they're actually part of the team. I think that what we'll probably do, especially with like our software development team, is we'll probably build an office in Colombia, and I'll go down there once a month or once a quarter and just be really active and engaged. And if you have the resources, that in-person time can go a long ways.
Yeah, that one is actually huge. We have about 15 people in Argentina, and we decided once every 2 weeks we do something for them. We have them pay for dinner or something where they can get together. The feedback we're getting from our employees, they just love it. And
yeah,
cost is like, it's not significant. Really, if you're hosting these events down here, I think we spend about $75, maybe $100.
I was gonna say $100. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's just money. That's money well spent. And we do the same things here in Houston. It's like, on Monday we order fajitas for everyone, and it's like, just like team building things. Tomorrow we have an all hands meeting that'll be all day, and then we're going, and there's this place called Flight Club that's like a dart bar. We're going there afterwards. And so if you can replicate those things for remote teams, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I love that. And the last one, which I think is important, that one, showing people how they can grow inside the company, because that people are really into personal development, professional development. So showing them how being part of their company is going to help them achieve their professional and personal goals. And that will depend and change for each company, but that's something big as well.
100%. Yeah. I mean, building culture with global talent is, I mean, they're people. And it's like all the same things that you do in office with your team, doing those same things, and offering opportunities to advance and develop and get ahead in their career are going to incentivize people. And so 100% in agreement there. Last question that we have is, what trends do you see shaping the future of hiring in the oil and gas industry, and how should startups or companies prepare to adapt to these changes? So I'll riff on this one for a minute, Franco. So a couple of things that I see is, one, there's a few interesting things happening, especially if you're in oil and gas tech, because oil and gas is very cyclical, which we'll get to that in a minute. But if you look at what's happening right now in tech in the United States, tech is going through a recession. It's had a drawdown. There's a ton of layoffs, and I'm actually seeing that there's a lot of tech talent that wants to come into oil and gas and the broader energy industry. And so I found that pretty fascinating. I was one of our big investors is Bison Technology. They're based up in Oklahoma City, and I was just at their office. They had an all hands event that I was speaking at, and a lot of those people at the company were from tech. They're from places like Austin and some of the more tech hubs in the United States. So that's an interesting dynamic. But coming back to the cyclical nature of oil and gas, what's always plagued this industry is, especially on the exploration and production side, is that these E&Ps are adding on assets and trying to grow their asset base and add on oil and gas wells. But in order to manage those assets, their G&A and their teams have to scale linearly. And then when oil prices crash, everyone gets laid off. And so it brings this huge amount of volatility to oil and gas, which actually fucking sucks if you worked in oil and gas. If you're my age, you're 34 years old, we've seen 3 major downturns in oil and gas in my career. Like, that's crazy. I mean, I'm talking full blown recessions where a material amount of employees are getting laid off. And so I think that oil and gas companies should be able to leverage global talent so that you can have, especially for your administrative and some of your operational back end office type roles, to where you can bring a little bit more stability to American workers. I think if you're in oil and gas tech, yeah, it's really hard when you're in oil and gas tech because you're competing with high tech salaries, but also oil and gas has high salaries too. So you're getting the worst of both worlds, where people that are in oil and gas tech are just they have a ton of opportunities for high paying jobs. And so, I was talking to Alan Gilmer is one of our investors. He's the founder of Enverus, which is formerly Drilling Info. It's one of the biggest tech companies. It's the biggest tech company in oil and gas, but one of the biggest in the U.S. multi-billion dollar company. And in the early days, they had massive teams in India. He was flying over to India and getting the best petroleum engineering students out of universities. And that allowed them to build up this big operation in the United States that employs a lot of Americans. And so this isn't something that's new, of hiring global teams. I think what's just really unique about the opportunity now is post-COVID, people are more used to working remotely through Zoom calls. You have tools like GatherTown, and now you have these tech-enabled recruiting platforms like Near, where you can find the best talent globally, worldwide. And I think this was always the problem, was like, you go try to find someone on like Upwork or Fiverr, and just the effort of trying to find someone it's a lot of work. And now there's this, having the streamlined process and being able to work with a tech-enabled recruiter kind of blows the doors open. And it's like, oh shit, we can go find the best people around the world at scale. And now we have better tools to work with them and mitigate some of those issues of remote work. It's just a really interesting time. And I think that the entire oil and gas industry can benefit from this, not just tech companies, but the entire industry.
Yeah, so I agree with that. And I think, big point to make about the flexibility to scale up and down quickly with talent outside of the States, given you mentioned about volatility, and also finding the best combination of stateside and non-US talent, and just to scale. So yeah.
Absolutely. So cool, man. This has been very informative. I give my stamp of approval on Near. It's got the frac slap stamp of approval. I've had nothing but good experience working with y'all so far, so I feel comfortable sending anyone over to y'all. Where can people find you guys and work with you if they're interested?
They can go to hirewithnear.com and book a call with one of our account executives, and it's just a free consultation to explore what they need and see if we're a fit or not. And for now, we'll just recommend some best practices or maybe point out to other resources. And if we are, happy to work together. And they can also find me on LinkedIn, Franco Pereira, and reach out.
Perfect. Cool. Awesome. We will have a link over to Near. You can also reach out to anyone at DW, and we'll get you hooked up. And yeah, if you go over to Near, let them know that Digital Wildcatters sent you. And if you have any questions about working with global talent, I am always happy to take time and talk shop and bounce ideas, because it's definitely something that we'll be focusing on in the future. So Franco, thank you for taking the time, and thank you for the good work that Near has done for Digital Wildcatters. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Colin. It was super fun.